You tell me when.
All right.
Okay, so it was our last night in Ankara, and we had just had our final dinner with the Turkish students from Bilkent University, and that meal went from like 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. It was a long meal. We'd been socializing, having fun, talking, and we had been out late every night that week. Going to Under the Roof, going to clubs, just dancing with the students, getting to know the students. So we had late nights all week. We were tired, and there were 4 of us, me, Cassidy, Leah, and Meredith, who at the end of the dinner, we were ready to go home and go to the hotel and sleep. We'd had late nights all week, so it was time for us to go sleep. Everybody else wanted to go to the club with the students, have one last night where everybody went dancing. Us 4 were like, we're done, time to go to sleep. So one of the Turkish students got us a cab, talked to the cab driver, told him our address, told him our hotel, sent us off. So I'm in the front seat, Cassidy, Meredith, and Leah are in the back seat, and we're driving along. No big deal, pretty standard. And we got to this major intersection, and the only way I can describe it is that there was like a police blockade where they were stopping all of the cars at this major intersection, stopping the cars, talking to the drivers, letting them on. Pretty standard. It didn't seem particularly out of character. Still busy downtown Ankara, and then we get stopped, and the police driver, like our cab driver, gets out of the car and is talking to the policeman, and then he goes back behind Meredith in the back seat, and I just remember seeing him open the car door, and he reaches behind, like shoves his hand behind Meredith's head, grabs something and yanks it out and shuts the door on Meredith. And he's talking to the police driver. He goes up, and now he's like talking to the police driver. He's like opened the trunk, slammed it, opened her door, slammed it. He's gone up to the police car. He's like in the police car. And at this point, I'm like, okay. So I get my phone out, and I'm telling Cassidy and Leah and Meredith, okay, guys, grab your stuff. We're going to get out. I dial Anthony, who's the other team leader on the trip, who's with all the other students at the club. They went dancing, and I'm on the phone with Anthony, and I go, hey, Anthony, just so you know, the taxi got stopped by the police, and I'm going to, like, open my door. All the girls have their stuff. I push the door open, and I don't know, I guess the taxi driver had like seen me starting to get out. He sprints over, hops in the car, throws the car in gear, and takes off. And I'm like, Anthony, we got stopped by the police. The cab driver's in the police car right now. We're not getting out. Like, we're back in the car. We're moving again. I will call you when we get to the hotel. Shut the phone off, sit there. I'm like, okay, guess we're in this car. And at that point, it was like mildly alarming that this experience had happened. And like, I think Leah made a crack in the back about like, so when we get home, we're going to watch Taken, right, guys? Ha, 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 ha. And then we get to this next big intersection. And the cab driver is clearly annoyed that he was stopped by the police car. We get to this next big intersection, and we recognize this intersection. And all of us in the car know we need to be going right. And sure enough, that taxi driver goes left. And we're like, nope. So we're driving the wrong way. We know we're driving the wrong way. And we're just going. And we keep going. And we keep going. And as we keep going, the streets get dimmer and less populated. And then it's like darker and darker and darker, and then finally like the nice paved streets of Ankara turn into like this cobble path, and it's getting really sketch. And then there are no lights, and we're driving down this cobble path, and I don't know if this was actually what it was, but in my mind's eye I see like we pull up to this super sketch bar with this flickering neon sign in the middle of nowhere, and the taxi driver like pulls to a halt, slams on the brake, and then he just starts yelling. He just starts yelling in Turkish and doing this, and I'm assuming telling me to get out. I take a look at that bar, I take a look at him, and I go, no, you can drive on. You drive on. No. And I just keep yelling no, and the taxi driver's yelling at me to get out, and But the girls in the back, I'm pretty sure, are laughing. It was like hysterical laughter. Like, there literally is no other response to this situation right now. And so eventually, I guess he figures out I'm not getting out. We probably sat there for like 2 or 3 minutes with him yelling at me yelling at him. He yanks the car in gear. He like takes off. This man did not have an ounce of subtlety in his driving. Takes off, and we start like whipping down these back roads. And like slowly we get more light, and we get to Ankara. We're back in like a main drag somewhere. I don't know what main drag in Ankara, but there's a big major city street. I'm seeing chain restaurants that I recognize. I'm like, okay. I turn around and tell the girls, I'm like, okay, if we can get out of this car, we're getting out of this car. I don't care where we are. We will call Anthony. We will figure this out. So the taxi driver, he like pulls up. So he's like zooming down the street. He pulls up very briefly against the curb, and again, this is the second time I've started getting out the car. First time I started to get out the car, he pulled up and drove off. The second time we stopped, I wasn't getting out of the car at this sketch bar, and now we've like pulled up against a main thoroughfare sidewalk. Finally, I'm willing to get out of the car, so I'm starting to get out of the car, and yet again, he takes off. He's like backs up. I have to shut my door real quick because he's moving. He backs up into oncoming traffic and speeds backwards into oncoming traffic down a major Ankara street for like 2 or 3 blocks, like Mission Impossible style, backwards reverse driving down a main thoroughfare. And he pulls up very quickly next to the same sidewalk he had pulled up to moments before. Why we needed to back up down 2 or 3 side blocks, I have no idea. Pulls up against that sidewalk. We get out. We have to call Anthony to come find us. And by the time we got back, the other group had beaten us home. So yes, that was our taxi experience in Ankara.